Hey everyone, welcome to this episode of Martine's Musings. I'm your host, Martine Felton, and today I have Karin Freeland here with me, author and life coach. How you doing today, Karin?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
So, I wanted to have you on the show because I was really interested in your work with women and the book that you wrote, which is titled The Ins and Outs of My Vagina.
Yep.
Yes, there it is. And I was interested in, the whole topic of female sexuality and our body and what our body images that we have of
Mm.
ourselves and why that's so important and things of that nature. So I wanted to I wanted to start off with like your background. What were you doing before this?
Yeah. So I spent 15 years in corporate,
Hmm.
chasing paychecks and titles, trying to climb the corporate ladder, and really attaching myself to other people's dreams for me
Yeah.
rather than really listening to what was inside of my heart and what I really wanted to get out of life.
Yes.
And so someone said to me, Karin, you should be chief marketing officer. And I was like, okay, that sounds great. Sure, why not? And next thing I knew, it was like I was running 100 miles an hour towards a title and a position that I didn't even really want. It just sounded good at the time.
Right.
So I had a chance to really stop and reflect after a couple of family deaths. And it really made me pause and go, wait, what do I want to do with my life? Am I wasting my life? Is this what I was put here for? I don't know. This doesn't seem right. And so I took a huge risk and decided to write a book. I had never written a book before. And in that process, I realized, oh, I want to coach other women. I want to help other women get a hold of their dreams and follow their hearts and live their best life.
Yeah, yeah, I totally resonate with that because I don't know if you're still in the corporate world, but I still am.
Yeah,
I haven't been able to detach myself yet.
it's
um,
hard.
yeah, it is hard. But it's like you get caught up in all of the titles and getting the promotion and the raises and all of it's just and it feels kind of soulless. You know what I
Oh,
mean?
soul sucking was like
Yeah.
the word that I always would use. Like, I have a
Yes.
soul sucking job, I have a soul
Yeah.
sucking life. Like, this is not feeding me, it's not driving me. I don't have energy
Hmm.
behind it anymore. And there was a
Yeah.
time, absolutely, in my career that I did have energy and passion for it.
Right.
And
Me
then I
too.
started to outgrow it. And there were like signs and these feelings that would pop up, but I was so scared of them. I was scared to confront them because I knew that that meant change. And I knew
Hmm.
that that meant a certain level of uncertainty. And I wasn't comfortable with that yet. So I
Hmm.
kept suppressing them and pushing them down, but they always come back.
Yeah.
So it's like that little voice in your head that's like, nope, you need to change. You need to change.
Because I worked in the publishing industry, in my other life.
Yep.
So I could never at there was a point where I could never see myself outside of being an editor.
Hmm.
Like that was my trajectory, publishing, corporate publishing, books, journals, and things like that. So and when I had lost the job, when I lost the job, that's what really woke me up to other possibilities, in my life.
Yeah.
It woke me up to my gifts, my intuitiveness, and all of these other things that I started this podcast. I started, writing more, and
Yeah.
so it takes things to come down,
Yeah.
around you for you to be like, "Oh, wake up." And that's so crazy, right? How it takes things to crumble in order for you to
Yep.
wake up.
And I always tell my clients, like, you're right where you need to be. They're like, but
Mhm.
this is so painful and this is agonizing. And I'm like, I know. And if it wasn't, you wouldn't change. You would stick with it. It has to get bad, right?
Yes.
Those family members, God bless them. Of course, I wish they were still here, but I always say their death was not in vain. Their death was what woke me up and made me realize I need a shift in my life. And for
Right.
you, it might be losing the job. And so
Yes.
everybody has this like thing that feels so catastrophic. But what it does is it forces you to actually take a look at your life. And when you're running 100 miles an hour and you've got a million things on your plate, you're not thinking about what do I really want in my life. You're just like, how do I pay this next bill? How do I get this next thing I'm supposed to have?
Right.
How do I get that next promotion? So it's like, that's one of the things I love about coaching is it gives people a pause. I meet usually every other week with my clients, and it just takes them out of the rat race for 1 hour to go like, wait a second, what is it that I want? Am I doing the things that are really going to serve me, or do I need to make some changes?
Right. Agreed. How did you transition out of corporate into coaching and kind of working for yourself?
Yeah, great question. And it was a slow process for me. So I would say my whole, like what I call the midlife crisis was
Mhm.
about 4 years long.
Mm.
And as I started to come out of it and realized I wanted to make a change, I did start to look at my job a little bit differently because now it was funding my dreams. Now my job was allowing me to pay for my editor and pay to build my website and pay
Yes.
for some marketing support. So I started to see it almost as a means to an end. So I was juggling both my full-time job and writing this book at the same
Right.
time.
Right.
And it was actually really great because I had a team, so I could delegate a lot of stuff to my team. They were able to grow while I was able to pull back and focus more on writing my book.
Mhm.
And then as I got actually laid off in August of 2020, and it was beautiful. It was the best day of my life because the universe knew if we don't lay you off, you will
Yes.
continue to delay the inevitable. Because
Yes.
it's hard to walk away from a six-figure job,
It is hard. It is
It,
hard.
you think you can juggle both, but you can't. So I did that for probably juggling both for about a year or so. Then when I got laid off, I went into consulting. So I
Mhm.
now was like part-time and I could say yes or no to projects. And that for me worked really well because it was good money. So I was still able to put food on the table and I wasn't going from like, 6 figures to nothing overnight.
Right.
But it also gave me the flexibility to start my coaching business and to go get certified and get some of the trainings that I felt passionate about getting,
Right.
and start to meet with clients and coach. And so for me, I always recommend kind of having that runway or that path as
Yeah.
long as it's not jeopardizing your mental health. I mean, I've had some clients that I'm like, okay, you just have to leave your job. Like, you don't worry about the backup plan. Like, your mental health is not worth this. But for
Mhm.
most people, you want that glide path.
Yeah, you want that transitional period where you can kind of
Yeah.
slide in. Sometimes it's not that, it doesn't happen that way for some people.
Yeah.
For me, right now, my corporate job is ending in December.
That's exciting
I'm
and terrifying, but in a good way.
but it's like I'm looking for other jobs,
Yeah.
and I came close to getting 3 other jobs and didn't get them.
Ooh, are they in publishing also?
Yes.
Mm. Well, that's why. Because the universe has a different plan for you.
I mean, but I need to know that I can put food on the table still and pay my rent and, and keep
Yeah.
keep my financial responsibilities. That's my whole thing. And it's like you want to know what the universe has planned for you, but you can't know. You just have to trust.
Yes. And be open to the signs and the
Yes.
little things that come along. I had one client and she was like talking about how she always wanted to teach. And I'm
Mhm.
like, so why don't you? Well, it doesn't make that much money. And I'm like, okay. And she literally in the beginning of the call was like, I don't even need to work anymore. She's older. She's like,
Mhm.
I've done it all. I'm good. And I'm like, wait a second, but you won't go teach because it doesn't make you enough money. But you just told me you didn't have to make money.
You
So
don't
it's
need to
like,
work anymore. So it would just be from your heart. Like
right.
that's the perfect situation scenario in my book.
Yes. But we often we put our value on our paycheck because that's how
Yeah.
our value has been derived for so many years. That's
Yeah.
how we, categorize ourselves. Well, I'm the breadwinner or I make this much money. So that it therefore equates to my worth or my value. but it
Mhm.
doesn't. So it's
Yeah.
breaking some of those thoughts, and I bet there's something deep down in your heart. Maybe it's taking the podcast full time. There's something else that you probably want to do. And all of a sudden the universe is going to like pop a sign in and you're gonna be like, oh my gosh, that's exactly what I'm meant to do. That's why I didn't get those 3 jobs in publishing, because I was meant for this.
I guess.
But it's hard when you're
We'll
in it.
see.
It's hard to
I'll keep
let
you
go.
posted, Karen.
Yes, do. Keep me posted. Because the same thing happened to me. When I was in corporate,
Mhm.
all I could see was corporate Karen. I couldn't see
Yes.
Karen, the life coach. I couldn't see Karen, the author. I didn't
Mhm.
even know that those were possibilities for me. So what did I do? I applied for bigger jobs with bigger teams that would make me
Mhm.
work more hours, that were further from my home, that would have longer commutes, would take
Oh
me
my
away from
God.
my kids. And the universe kept going, nope, you're not getting that job. You're not getting that job. And I was getting so crushed because I'm like, I don't understand. These jobs should be shoo-ins for me. I'm
Mhm.
qualified. It's the right next step. But it wasn't the right next step because I wasn't listening to my heart and I was just doing what my head was telling me to do.
Well, I, I would love to do the things that I love to do full time, but
Yeah.
it's hard to monetize yourself nowadays.
Yeah, it is. It really is. And there's so many people kind of going into the podcasting and the coaching business and all these
Yes.
things that the market, there's always room for more because you do it uniquely you, but it is saturated in some sense. So
Mhm.
again, it's like finding that little pathway, like what are you going to do to bridge the gap till you can
Yeah.
make all of this stuff work?
Yes.
Well, I'm sending good vibes. Something's going to come up.
Thank you. Thank
You're
you.
welcome.
So your book, The Ins and Outs of My Vagina. Let's talk about that. I love that title.
Thank you.
Tell me about, first of all, why you wanted to name it that.
Okay, so the original title was actually I Don't Know My Vagina,
Okay.
because the premise of the whole book came about when I was pregnant with my first son, which I
Mhm.
talk about in chapter 30, all lubed up with nowhere to go. And yeah, the chapter titles are hilarious. So I was told by my OB that you are supposed to do this thing called a perineal massage, which basically prepares the body for birth. So you take olive oil and rub it on the vulva and opening of your vagina so that when the baby comes out, you don't tear.
Right.
So of course I try to do this, fail miserably. Olive oil is flying everywhere. I can't get my hands in the right position.
Mhm.
V, who is my vagina in the book, is like, you're hurting me. Like, what are you doing? And I'm like, I don't know. So we end up calling it a day. But my husband comes home from work and he's like, why is there olive oil in the bathroom? Like, what is going on? So I'm trying to explain this to him. And it was actually his idea. He said, you know what
Mhm.
you should do? You should write a book and call it I Don't Know My Vagina, because it is clear you don't know how this thing works. So I wasn't really sold on it, but he planted that seed and I started thinking about it and thinking about it. And sure enough, I was like, I think I actually have a book. I think I have enough vagina stories to actually
Right.
create
Yes.
a memoir. And the book title was actually not born until almost 10 years later in a wrestling gym. So while my kids were at wrestling, I was talking to another mom, and she actually was the one that helped me come up with the title. She was like, you should call it The Ins and Outs of My Vagina. And I was like,
Mhm.
ooh. And as soon as I shared it with my editor, he was like, yeah, that's the one. That's it.
So what are some of your, just a bit about some of the vagina stories in the book?
Sure. I mean, it literally covers everything. The book is written chronologically. So it starts from when I'm 5 and I first, discover it while I'm
Ooh.
sitting on a toilet. And I'm
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
what is this thing down here?
Mhm.
To, being 40 and chasing the orgasm and being like, why doesn't this come easier for me? Why is
Right.
this such a struggle for me? And why is nobody talking about the fact that women are not orgasming from penetration alone?
Right, right.
So I talk
When you
about
were
things
5,
that
did
are,
you call it sorry to interrupt,
no,
but
go ahead.
this is a question because I have a
Yeah.
5-year-old girl.
Mhm.
When you were 5, did you call it a vagina? Were you
I actually mistook it. I thought I had a penis growing. And my mom was like, you most definitely do not. But it was my clit. And I didn't realize that that was like part of the vagina. Like I didn't know. I thought I had like a mini penis growing.
Yes.
So no, we called it like crotch or just
Yeah.
like, we didn't
All the
use,
words that we shouldn't have, right?
right.
Me
Oh,
too, and that's why I have 3 girls, and I said, "I am not going to give them those street words for their body parts.
Thank you.
There, it's going to be vagina, breasts, everything that it's supposed to be from day one. Don't
Yes.
call it anything else.
Yep. We
And
do the same with my boys too,
yeah,
Like it's
because I remember growing up and feeling embarrassed about saying those words like it was wrong.
yeah. Yeah, vagina is not a dirty word. Like,
Yes,
oh,
exactly.
we have to take away that stigma. And I
Mhm.
see it all the time in marketing the book. I get kicked off of platforms. They won't let me run their ads because it's automatically looped into adult content, which
Oh,
this book really is, I would say, for 18 and up. I mean, it's not meant for young girls,
right.
um, but it is meant for their mothers, their parents to start
Mhm.
thinking about how am I going to talk to my daughter about these things? I cover serious situations like, and I do it with humor in most cases, but, in eighth grade, I was in a situation where I was alone with a boy at his house and he wanted to go further than I did. And
Mhm.
I didn't know what to say. I didn't know how to get myself out of the situation. I didn't have
Right.
strategies for what to do. And eventually I actually did feel physically sick. And I was
Mhm.
like, I can't do this. I have to go.
Mhm.
Um, but it would have been a lot better and probably gone more smoothly if I had ever had someone talk to me about, hey, you may be in a situation like this sometime
Right.
where the guy you're dating wants to do more than you're ready to do. Here's how you can handle that.
Mhm.
So I hope that it will open up these types of conversations. I talk about getting blackout drunk in college and waking up in a guy's bed. And of
Mhm.
course, it's a funny dialogue in the sense that like V is like, man, you really should have seen what happened last night. That was some night. And I'm like,
Mhm.
what do you mean? What happened? What did I do?
Mhm.
Um, so it's really hoping that young girls going off to college and experimenting with drinking, or maybe they're on medication, think twice before
Yes.
they go too far,
Yeah.
because I've always been very fortunate, right? I've always kind of gotten out fairly unscathed, right?
Unscathed, yeah.
Yeah, thank God. But not everyone is going to have that experience. So I'm hoping that some people will learn from my tales. And also then there's a lot of fun stories, just about going to get my first bikini wax and being like
Mhm. Oh
mortified
my
when she
god.
tells me to get on all fours so she can do the backside. And I'm like, what do you mean the backside? What? It's
Exactly.
awful. Like, so there's, and then of course I talk all about pregnancy and giving birth and tearing during birth. I mean,
Yeah.
it's literally everything that we go through with vaginas, that at
Yeah.
least has happened to me, because obviously it's a memoir. So everything in there is true. So there are other things that happen, obviously, to people's vaginas, but if it didn't happen to me, then obviously it's not in the book.
That's awesome. I really like the idea of that, and, I think it's something that, we should all be talking about.
Yeah.
Why do you think, like, body and our sexuality and body image is so important right now?
Well, I don't know if it's just important right now. I think it's probably
Mhm.
always been important, but
Yeah, it's always been
there
important. Yes, you're
wasn't
right
always
on
room in
that.
society for that. I think
Mhm.
we're finally starting to see the tides turn. We're starting to see ads with real women with real bodies. They're not photoshopped, they're not a twig. Like,
Mhm.
because I remember even for me in high school, I mean, I was 97 pounds my senior year of high school, and I was taking Dexatrim to
What's
try
that?
to slim down. It's like a
Oh my god.
pill, like a diet pill that
Oh,
jacks you up, right? It gives you like a
yeah.
ton of caffeine and then it basically tries to burn off all your fat. And I don't know what I was thinking. I mean, I wasn't thinking obviously, but it was just buried in my head that like, and I was a dancer, so I
Mhm.
wanted to be thin and fit the dancer body, and I wanted the boys to think I was pretty, and there's just so many societal messages I think coming at us all the time. Um, that yeah, I didn't even realize until I went back and read the whole book front to back when we were editing,
Yeah.
and I was like, wow, I have a lot of body images issues. Like
Mhm.
I almost didn't even realize it as I was just writing chapter by chapter by chapter. But when I sat down and read the whole thing within
Yeah.
like 2 days, I was like, whoa, I need to take a look in the mirror for myself. Like, how do I feel about my body? And I'm
Mhm.
still learning at 41, I think it's a work in progress.
Yeah, it's always a work in progress, and I think that we don't even realize the like the stories or the programming that we've
Yes.
had from, childhood or adolescence, that about ourselves, that we just continue on and on and on until we're adults.
Oh, and we perpetuate it. I
Mhm,
always say, and God bless my mom. I mean, I love her. She's fantastic. But
mhm.
she would always say to me before I would leave the house, "Aren't you going to put some makeup on? Aren't you going to do your hair?" So there was like this
Yes.
idea that you can't leave the house until you're done up, right?
Mhm.
And I do believe that there is a level of pride that I just want to take in my appearance. I feel better when I feel like I look good for the world.
Right.
But now to my kids, I'm like, "Are you gonna go out without gel in your hair? Are you gonna go out without doing your bed head, guys?" I'm like, "You look sloppy," But then I'm like, "Oh my gosh, what am I saying?" Like, I'm gonna give them an appearance complex. So it's like we have to try to decondition ourselves and become hyper aware of when we're making comments or saying things that are based on some societal message that doesn't serve us.
Yeah. My mom used to say, "You always wanna look better than you feel." Like,
Oh, yes.
I used to, and I never really thought about that until I started feeling, like, anxious, or, I had bouts of depression, going
Yeah.
through bullshit in life. And so that always stayed in my mind. You always, like, if I needed to go to work, and you have to still have to function even if you
Right.
don't feel so great. And I used to be like, you always have to look better than what you feel.
Yeah. But then aren't we like telling ourselves this lie in a way also, right? We're not
Mhm.
allowing ourselves to feel our real feelings.
Right.
And people were
Exactly. And
shocked.
and you're suppressing them by
Yes.
doing that.
And then they come up and they rear their ugly head at the wrong time. Like I would just blurt out some ridiculous thing in the middle of a meeting because I did not want to be there. And I was so toxic by the end of being in corporate because I wasn't supposed to be there. I'd
Mhm.
outgrown my welcome. And I just didn't have the confidence to actually say, no, this isn't meant for me. I need to leave. So I would have self-sabotaged, but my
Right.
self-sabotage was actually saying like ridiculous things or shutting down in meetings or just throwing my hands up in the air and be like, well, whatever you want me to do. I'll just tell me what you want me to do and I'll go do it. Because I was like, you obviously don't want me to think. You obviously don't want me to come up with my great plans. So just like
Mhm.
a monkey, tell me what you want me to do and I'll go do it. And I would get so frustrated. But really, that was my body's way of saying, Karen, you are not acknowledging the feelings and emotions that you are having. You keep trying to push them down.
Mhm.
No, we're coming up and we're going to come up at the worst possible time.
And when they come up, it's like, "Okay, you've been pushing us down for like 30 years now. Now it's time to party."
Yes. So true.
So how do you I always like to ask my guests, on because I'm such a self-love and self-care advocate. Do you have any practices that you like to do for yourself when, self-love I know self-love is a mindset to most, but I feel like they're both come hand in hand.
Yeah.
So are there any self-care practices that you like to do, and, to keep yourself high vibrational, keep your energy up?
100%. Yes. So I always start my day with gratitude. And I know it
Mhm,
probably sounds cliche, but I do when I'm laying in bed before I open my eyes, before I even reach over and grab my phone and turn it on.
mhm,
I just take a few minutes to just thank God for letting me wake up today. Thank for my children, for my husband who's next to me, for my
mhm.
house, for my dog, like just all the little things that get overlooked sometimes that we just don't take a moment to appreciate.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
then I have a prayer journal that I do at night before bed just to then reflect on the whole day. We are big on affirmations. So my
Mhm.
kids'
Me too.
bathroom, my bathroom, and now my husband actually has one up on his side of the mirror.
Okay.
We have 4 or 5 post-it notes with just a couple of affirmations about, either ourselves or our goals, what we're trying to achieve. And I find that that's really helpful just to get that mindset first thing in the morning while you're getting ready, like, yeah, I can do it. I'm
Yeah.
smart. I'm capable. Um, those are the main things. And then, of course, like hiking and stuff, I like to do. I'm very physically active. I love working
Mhm,
out. For me, that's
mhm.
my stress release. So I
Me
can,
too, yes.
go for a run or jump on the max trainer and just pump it out for 20 minutes and like get all that pent up energy or frustration out. And then I'm like, okay, like I've taken care of myself. Now I can start the day and take care of my clients and take care of my readers and all the
Mhm.
other people that I'm trying to care for.
Yeah, I recently introduced my kids to affirmations. So I was trying to figure out a way to, and you just gave me an idea, a way for them to see them on a daily basis. And I think I'm gonna like post their affirmations, their individual affirmations in their room. So
Yeah,
like when they wake up, it could be there,
I
you
think
know what
that's
I
a
mean?
great idea.
Yeah, or something like that. Just so that, I mean, I introduced it to them, but kids, if you don't keep showing them something, they'll forget.
Yes. And my kids actually helped me write mine. So they
Oh,
helped.
really?
Yeah,
Good.
it was really sweet because I did theirs first. And I
Mhm.
usually just have mine in my head. So I hadn't actually taken the step to write them down. And so I
Mhm.
came in my bathroom one morning and my son was like, well, I made you some affirmations. And I'm like, that's so sweet. Now I had to tweak a couple of them because they weren't all written correctly. There's a
Mhm.
specific way to write an affirmation. So if you wanted to do I am smart, right, you wouldn't put I am not stupid because
Right.
then you're still seeing the word stupid, right?
Stupid.
So
Yeah.
that has a negative connotation. So they had some that weren't quite written exactly the way that I would do it. It was like
Yeah.
they had one even for their own bathroom, like I won't fight with my brother. And I'm like, no, 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 you have the word fight in there. I'm like, I will get along with my brother. I'm like,
Right.
there we go. That's our
Yeah.
affirmation.
Yeah. That's what you want to affirm.
Right.
Perfect. So where can the listeners find you, find your book
Yes,
specifically?
absolutely. So the book is on Amazon, Barnes and Noble, and select bookstores, indie bookstores across the country, but mostly in South Carolina.
Mhm.
And I want to make sure people know that when you get a copy of The Ins and Outs of My Vagina, you will actually be helping Alliance for Period Supplies. So a portion of the proceeds from every copy sold will go to help end period poverty and get women in need access to the period products that they need.
Oh my God, that's so great. Yeah.
Yeah,
Is that in the US or
yes.
outside?
They have 125 chapters now
Mhm.
in the US. So, yes, I wish it had a broader reach, but
Yeah.
it is national. So
That's
that's really
fine.
great.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
perfect. So
Yeah.
I will have all of Karen's information in the description box of this episode. And this has been an amazing talk. Thank you, Karen, for coming on to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been
No
amazing. And
problem.
y'all go follow me on Instagram at Karin Freeland. It's Karin with an I. And
Okay.
yeah, we'll definitely stay connected.
Yeah, thank you so much for coming on to the show. And everyone else, like I said before, all of Karen's information will be in the description box below. All right. Everyone have a beautiful day and take care. Bye.